The big thing we also want to talk about tonight, Jordan, of course, is in the political world here.
That's right. That is our top story today. The lawmakers of Utah are in a special legislative session. A lot of this revolves around redistricting. You know, the lawmakers have been in a battle in the courts. Now they have taken it to Capitol Hill. That's where we find chief political correspondent Lindsay Aerts, who has been there all day. And Sarah, what's pretty interesting is before you hopped over here, Lindsay said that there's quite a commotion in there. Tell us about it, Lindsay.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a little tension in the Senate chambers. I haven't seen it quite like that before. I mean, I've been in some tense hearings before, and they're usually just verbally tense, and this one was too, but I've never heard the Senate president bang his gavel so loud as he just did in that Senate room. Kind of a signal here, guys, of tensions that are a little bit testy as we debate redistricting, and that is because that is the issue, and it determines who we vote for. So understandably, people are again feeling this angst over what's going on in Utah right now, and we're here in this special session because lawmakers are looking to push back some candidate filing deadlines for congressional candidates and change some rules for the courts in hopes of buying them some more time to appeal Utah's redistricting ruling. Now, you might remember that map that the judge ruled on, that the judge implemented as a remedy for the lawmakers violating Prop 4, ushers in the first Democratic seat in Utah in decades. It's basically a Salt Lake County-centric district that is ushered in here in Utah. Well, of course, GOP lawmakers don't like that, and they don't like the process by which the courts have taken on their time in getting this case out, and they call them novel legal theories as to their interpretation of this case and some of the aspects of our anti-gerrymandering law Proposition 4 and why the legislature violated it and all of that. So we're in this session today to push back those filing deadlines, potentially buy ourselves some more time to appeal. Presumably that appeal will come as soon as possible. Once these laws are signed by the governor, then they're on the books, and that helps the state's case, presumably. So we'll have to see when that appeal happens, guys, but I'm just watching some of this drama as it happens. I mean, none of the votes are going to change because we're here in a Republican supermajority, but just got a little tense in there for a minute.
Now, Lindsay, I want to ask you, you know, critics would say that the legislature took their losses in the judicial system and have now used this special session to basically change the rules. What has been their response to that?
Yeah, well, GOP lawmakers probably wouldn't describe it that way, but they say that it is their right within the Constitution to amend the court's rules, and they also have every right to change Utah law. So that is what they are doing here. Now, while that is also true, it is also true that they're doing it so that it can buy them more time to appeal. So I think both things are true in this case. But you're right that people are coming out criticizing this entire session, not even specifically like the bills themselves and what they actually do, because they're kind of benign bills. They don't really impact the everyday voter. It's just kind of the collection. They impact the candidates, don't get me wrong, but it's just kind of the overall collection of this special session and the principle on which we're having it. I think, Jordan, to your point, that many people disagree with.
In fact, you've had a lot of protesters there today that were protesting this session. What did you hear from them? What were those demonstrations like?
Yeah, of course, the plaintiffs in Utah's redistricting case, League of Women Voters, organized their supporters to come out today to demonstrate. They held up a huge, massive sign. I'm sure you will see this on the news channel. Every news channel you watch tonight will have this sign that said, "Uphold Prop 4, fair maps." That is what they want. They want this ruling to stand. They believe that Judge Gibson got it right. They want Proposition 4, Utah's anti-gerrymandering law, to stay on the books. That's what this whole court case is about. They fought for this since it was passed in 2018. But they believe, Jordan, what we were talking about a little bit earlier, as far as that the legislature is changing the rules in the middle of the game, that they, the courts have ruled on this. They can appeal through the courts, which is ultimately what they're trying to do. But again, moving deadlines in the middle of that is where some supporters of Prop 4 are taking issue.
And Lindsay, what's been really interesting, Lindsay's been following this every step of the way.
Right.
And as this has evolved, what's been interesting in your reporting, Lindsay, is, the GOP lawmakers have argued with Prop 4 about we didn't want to become California. We don't want outside influence impacting Utah. But then their push to change or get rid of Prop 4, you had some reporting that actually involved some outside of the state push and money for that. How do you square that circle, Lindsay? What are you hearing on the Hill about that?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's uncommon for out-of-state money to come in and fund initiatives, but that is one of the things that the GOP here in Utah really takes issue with. And so earlier I mentioned that two things can be true at once, right? It's true that Prop 4 took out-of-state money and that Republicans were critical of that. It's also true that Republicans are taking out-of-state money, but they defend sort of that decision by saying, well, these are the rules that we have to follow now. The courts have determined what can happen with initiatives. The courts have determined which map we use, and so now we have to try to win our side, and they're doing that by bringing in big out-of-state donors to try to raise enough money to help this issue on the ballot. If they get enough signatures in 2026, they're trying to repeal Proposition 4. So while we're in session here, all of that is going on in the background. But yeah, they sort of, have an explanation that this is kind of the hand they've been dealt, if you will.
Well, Lindsay, we want to thank you so much for joining us. I know you want to get back to the gavel slamming and yelling in those hearings, but again...
It was a loud slam, you guys. I'm telling you, I've never seen President Stuart Adams hit that thing so hard. And I'll tell you why. It's because two Democrats who stood up were both running for Congress. Senator Kathleen Reeby and Nate Bluen both stood up and kind of said their piece with these maps. Now they're running for Congress under these maps, so of course they support these maps, right? So the GOP lawmakers who are in charge and the Senate president really took issue with not keeping their comments germane to what we were talking about in this bill. They kind of accused them of doing a campaign speech on the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very interesting to continue to follow this as this battle that we thought might have been over continues to drag on. Chief Political Correspondent Lindsay Etz there live for us in the Capitol. Thank you so much.